Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Curry Corbett Sunday School class. Today, we're going to be talking about demonstrating kindness. Last week, we talked about focusing on God's purpose. Next week, we'll talk about dealing with personal sin. All of these lessons come from Samuel and 2 Samuel, and we're using David. David's one of the most popular characters in the Old Testament. And we'll be using David and some of his experiences to translate them to today's experiences and see if we can find some ways to better handle our own lives. So, what are some situations when someone went out of their way to show kindness to you? Well, there's been many in my case. I can recall times when I had things to repair, and I'm a real do-it-yourself kind of person. I enjoy trying to figure things out and doing my own repair work, but sometimes that's been difficult. But I've had friends that did know how to repair what I was working on and would come over and help me with that. That was showing tremendous act of kindness. Denise Wall, our neighbor and Sunday school member, she can bake and cook and some of the best cakes I've ever had, and she knows that we enjoy them, and out of just pure kindness from time to time will send a cake over for us. In times of sickness, cooking a meal for someone, that's showing a tremendous act of kindness. Or someone just handwrites you and I appreciate you, or sends you a card or a text, an email or something that says how much they appreciate you is a tremendous act of kindness. Maybe carried a package or lifted something that was very heavy. How about someone who gives you a book simply because they saw it and they knew it was something that you would enjoy? And this day and time, this is unusual, but it's really is an act of kindness. When someone lets you get in the other lane without blocking you or flipping you out, that's an act of kindness. Today we're going to look at how David demonstrated kindness. He didn't have to, and he certainly was not expecting to, this situation that we're going to talk about. God calls us to actions of kindness, sometimes both to believers and unbelievers. Both sometimes to good people and not so good people. He calls us to acts of kindness. This requires sometimes that we are determined to show kindness. We predetermine on some days that we're going to show kindness. What do we know about David? And as I said, he's one of the more popular characters in the Bible. What do we know about him, his past, that would have been a motivation for him to want to show kindness to Jonathan's descendants? Jonathan was Saul's son. As you know, Saul was the very first king of Israel. They tried judges, they tried all types of leadership. They wanted a king. So the first king of Israel was Saul, and Saul's son was Jonathan, and he was heir to the throne. Jonathan had shown many acts of kindness to David because David was very popular among the people. He was just a born leader, and he won many battles for Israel. And Saul became very jealous of him because he was so popular with the people. He was even felt threatened by David, so much to the point that he started tracking him down and wanted to kill him. But Jonathan showed him protection and showed him a lot of kindness. In return, David promised Jonathan that no matter what happened, that he was going to be kind to Jonathan's descendants, that he would look out for all of his descendants, even if Jonathan wasn't around. Now that David is king, he does become king because Saul, Jonathan, and even Jonathan's other brothers got killed in battle. So because of his popularity, David did become king. And we're at a period of time now that we're going to be talking about where he has already defeated all of Israel's enemies. And he has time and opportunity to think about the promises that he's made and the promises that he now needs to fulfill. Listen for the search that David initiates. David asked, "Is there anyone still left in the house of Saul to whom I can show kindness for Jonathan's sake?" Now there was a servant of Saul's household named Ziba. They called him to appear before David, and the king said to him, "Are you Ziba?" "Your servant," he replied. The king asked, "Is there no one still left in the house of Saul to whom I can show God's kindness?" Ziba answered the king, "There is still a son of Jonathan's. He is crippled in both feet." You know, this had to come as a surprise to David. There's still a son of Jonathan. Can you imagine how David felt? What David thought was Jonathan and all of his brothers and everybody in the family had gotten killed in battle. To learn that Jonathan had a son came as a surprise to him. Which relative of Saul did David learn about? Well, he found out that there was still a son, Jonathan, and recall what he had promised to Jonathan. And the kid just happened to be crippled. That would probably explain why he didn't die in battle as a soldier. He wasn't able to fight. Why do we sometimes forget about commitments that we make? Well, sometimes we just get so busy in life and sometimes just distracted that other things become more important to us, at least in our minds, than the commitment that we made. Circumstances change and we just think that it doesn't matter anymore. Maybe some time has gone by and you think, well, that person seems to be doing better to me, doesn't need my kindness, doesn't need my help. We just think that it doesn't matter. Maybe we really didn't mean it when we say it. I know sometimes a kind saying is if we see someone we haven't seen in a while and you're getting ready to leave, let's get together again soon. Let's do this again. Maybe we're just kind of playing nice or trying to be nice when we say that. Maybe we really didn't mean it. It just seemed like the kind, right thing to say. Maybe too much time has gone by and we really don't know the person now. Maybe the person wasn't exactly a friend, but it was an acquaintance, and we just don't know them anymore. In the case of politicians, and certainly not all of them, but way too many of them, some figure that once they are voted in, they'll just do what they want anyway. What do these kind of attitudes say about our commitment to demonstrate love and kindness? Well, one attitude, it may question our sincerity, that we're just playing nice, that we don't really mean it. We're not sincere. We're just trying to say nice things. It can suggest that we're very self-centered, that we make a commitment like that maybe to raise ourselves up. Other people know that we made some kind of commitment and we're just trying to look good among a crowd of people. It certainly demonstrates a lack of submission to the Lord. One thing we know, the Lord wants us to show kindness to each other. And when we're not, and when He gives us the opportunity to, and we don't do that, then we're showing a lack of submission to His will. And it certainly demonstrates a lack of Christ-likeness. So we have to determine to show kindness. We have to make a conscious decision that we're gonna be kind, and then we're gonna follow through. Then we have to, sometimes, these opportunities don't just come to us. Sometimes we have to seek these opportunities out to show kindness. So the one that we're talking about, that there is someone left in Jonathan's family, and it's Jonathan's son, and his name is Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth, he was a son of Jonathan, and the youngest son, which made him the grandson of King Saul. In the battle of Mount Gilboa, that's where Saul, that's where Jonathan was killed, that's where some of the brothers were killed, and they obviously had Mephibosheth in hiding, a nurse or someone who was taking care of the young ones. He was only 5 years old. So it became very obvious that the city was about to be overrun. So they took off with him and dropped him. And in dropping him, they injured him, both of his feet, and made him lame for life. So this is the one that Ziba is referring to. Listen for how Mephibosheth responds to David's invitation. "Where is he?" the king asked. "In Lo-debar," Ziba told him. So David sent for him. His name was Mephibosheth. He was Jonathan's son, and therefore he was Saul's grandson. When he came to David, he bowed low to the ground in deep respect. David said, "Greetings, Mephibosheth." Mephibosheth replied, "I am your servant." This is a moment. This is a real moment here. You have a grandson, a surviving grandson of the first king. He is in line to be king. Mephibosheth is in line to be king. It was Saul, Jonathan, Mephibosheth. He was in line to be king. So, wonder what David was thinking. I wonder what Mephibosheth was thinking. But Mephibosheth made it clear to start with. When he came to David, he bowed down low. What attitude did he assume toward David when they met? He bowed low to the ground in deep respect. We've talked about this before, what the role of bowing was. The depth of your bow was the depth of your respect that you had for someone. If you were dealing with servants and you were just showing an act of kindness, just trying to be nice, you would just nod. That would be the depth of your bow. And it ranges from that nod to what Mephibosheth did here. He bowed as low to the ground as he could get. And he did that in deep respect. David was seeing this. And he knew what that meant for him to bow in that kind of way. And then he follows it up, the bow up, with telling him, "I am your servant." What a moment. Why did he have reason to be afraid of David? Well, he was a direct descendant of Saul's oldest son, and he was in line for the throne. And he knew that it was very, very common that a new king would kill all potential rivals, and certainly someone who was in a direct descendant and directly in the line for the throne would without a doubt, would represent a threat. So there was every reason in the world for him to be afraid of David. He did not deserve David's kindness. He didn't know David. He'd never done anything for David, never had done anything for David's family. So he felt like maybe he had never done anything to deserve his kindness. And he had nothing. He had absolutely nothing to give David in return. Why is it harder to be kind to someone who may not be able to pay you back? And pay you back sometimes comes in many different forms of how someone would pay you back for an act of kindness. But why is it harder to be kind to someone sometimes when you know that they're not going to be nice back? Well, one reason is time, money, and energy. Sometimes it may cost you time, and sometimes money or energy. Sometimes it may cost you all three. We may think that an investment should have some sort of return. You know, little things sometimes There are some acts of kindness when we do respect some kind of acknowledgement. I guess a good one is when you and we're just coming through graduation, college and high school graduations, and many of us when we give something to someone we know that graduates. Maybe deep down we're expecting some kind of return of kindness, like a thank you note, an acknowledgement of some kind. It's harder to be nice without an expectation of repayment or a thank you, especially to someone maybe who's not been quite as kind to you. It's just harder to be nice when someone hasn't been nice to you. David had to look for Jonathan's descendant. He had to look for him. He could have sat on the throne forever without ever fulfilling that promise that he made to Jonathan and been just fine. David's life would have been good regardless. What can we do to locate those who need us, maybe, to show some kindness to them? David went out of his way. What about us? Think about our backgrounds. Think about our time here and maybe some people that we need to show an act of kindness to. If you can't think of someone, look, just think about the people around you. Think about the people in our church. Think about the people in Pendleton, the people in the county, our neighbors, our family. There are lots of people to show acts of kindness to. There are many city missions and organizations that help homeless and help people in need. There are many of them in Anderson and Greenville and Seneca and even here in Pendleton. We have one going on right now called Magi. The first distribution of food is Monday and then Tuesday night. As a side note, by the way, we're trying to handle that real responsible this year. We've got a very, very small crew of people that are helping with that. By and large, the younger guys and gals. So we have to determine to show kindness, seek opportunities to show kindness, and then practice kindness. Listen for how David carried through on his project of kindness. Don't be afraid, David said. So, Mephibosheth has already bowed down lowly and showed every act of submission that he could. And he has David at ease. So now David's going to put him at ease. Don't be afraid, David said. I intend to show you kindness. I intend to show kindness to you because of my promise to your father, Jonathan. I will give you all of the property that once belonged to your grandfather Saul, and you will eat here with me at the king's table. Mephibosheth bowed once again respectfully, and exclaimed, Who is your servant that you should show such kindness to a dead dog like me? Well, that makes you feel terrible, doesn't it, that he would say such a lowly thing of himself, that you should show kindness to such a dead dog like me. Then the king summoned Saul's servant Ziba, and he said, I have given your master's grandson everything that belonged to Saul and his family. That is huge. That's huge. Saul had a big kingdom. He owned lots of land, lots of cattle, lots of sheep, lots of everything. I have given your master's grandson everything that belonged to Saul and his family. You and your sons and servants are to farm that land for him to produce food for your master's household. But Mephibosheth, your master's grandson, will eat here at my table. Ziba had 15 sons and 25 servants. Ziba replied, Yes, my lord the king, I am your servant, and I will do that you have commanded. And from that time on, Mephibosheth ate regularly at David's table like one of the king's own sons. Boy, he intended to show him kindness, and he followed that by a tremendous act of kindness. I will give you all of the property that once belonged to your grandfather Saul. So he's telling them, look, even if I hadn't been king, even if you hadn't been crippled, and even if you had become king, I'm about to give you everything that you would have had if you were king. I'm going to give you all of the property that once belonged to your grandfather. And you will eat here with me at the king's table. That's no little thing either. Only family can do that regularly. You're not coming here as a guest once a week or once a month. You're going to be like family. You're going to eat here all of the time at the king's table. So he goes and he not only gives him the land and everything in it, he gives him the means by having the servants that would have been his servants anyway, had Saul lived, to take care of everything. That's just somehow seems to be more than just an act of kindness. That's really stepping it up, don't you think? So, demonstrating kindness. What about us? Where do we go with this? Have you learned anything from this lesson? Has it made you recall someone that maybe you think you owe an act of kindness to? Or maybe challenges you to give it more thought, to be more proactive doing it. Showing kindness, it is a choice that requires action. It's a choice that requires action. And it really is calculated when you're determined to do this, no matter how the other person has treated you or may treat you. We can go beyond acts of kindness. Determine before you leave home this week. And obviously this Sunday school lesson was written before March. You may be staying home. But even if you're home, determine some way that you will find a way to demonstrate an act of kindness. I'll give you one. I have a person that I have thought of. I am going to, by Wednesday, I'm going to demonstrate an act of kindness to Harry Dunlap. And I'm going to do that at least on a telephone call. Who is your Mephibosheth? There may be a person in your background that you just owe a thank you for something. You owe an act of kindness. Determine to find that person this week and determine to fulfill that act that you owe them. So, I hope all of you have a blessed week this coming week. I hope you all continue to maintain your good health and keep a good attitude. We are, whatever day we're getting together in Sunday school class again, that day is one day closer. I don't know when it will be, but I am looking forward to it. You guys have a blessed week, and we'll see you next week.